Chairperson Doherty,
Here.
Recording in progress.
Mr. Conway,
Here.
Mr. Rossi.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. So we are here for the Policy and Governance Subcommittee meeting, and we have Alicia Mallon from the Mass Association of School Committees who will be leading us through the policy changes where we left off. And Leticia Phillips is here from the superintendent's office. I think we're ready to go. Alicia, if you want to start sharing your screen.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I checked my notes and I actually also checked your minutes. And according to both of those, BCA-E is the last one we did. So we're going to pick up at BDA. Does anyone have think that we started or stopped somewhere else before we go any further?
Nope, that sounds right. Can you make that bigger?
I can. Hold on one second. Somewhere I can. There we go.
Okay.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So this is file, hold on, I gotta move you guys on my screen. This is file BDA. This is the school committee organizational meeting. This is your version of this, and the retention of your version of this is appropriate, especially since there are things in your charter that specifically dictate how this happens. The only adjustment we would make is we would change vice chairman to chair. Because we are using the term chair more regularly now, and then his, her to there. And other than that, we wouldn't make any other changes.
Perfect. So I think we'll just do as we've done in the past. We'll just go through till we get to the end of the section and then we'll vote on all of them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. So again, that's ours. We'll pass that one. BDB, now this is your version of this. Again, this is all grammatical updates, keeping your version of who your officers are and the responsibilities that those officers hold is appropriate. So I would recommend you just make the grammatical updates to this one and leave everything else.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Nope. Okay, we'll just keep going. They seem very self-explanatory. I don't think there's any controversy in updating the language.
Yep. And a lot of these things are dictated by your charter and they're dictated by Robert's rules. So, okay. So BDC, appointed school committee officials. This is a Lowell only policy. This talks about appointing a person from outside the membership to serve as secretary. If that's your current practice, we can just keep it and move along. Do you have someone who is outside of the organization to who does the secretarial duties for you?
Yes, I think we do.
Okay, then we don't need to touch this one. This one's great. We can leave it just as is.
Just to clarify, I remember when Joel Boyd first when I was first on the school committee, Joel Boyd said that he serves as the secretary between the school committee and the administration. So isn't it the superintendent that serves as the secretary?
That was my understanding as well since I've been here.
That is correct. The superintendent is the secretary to the school committee.
Okay, so should we like name that?
You could if you wanted to, but then that would lock you into it always being the superintendent. And if you wanted to change it, you'd have to come back and change the policy. This leaves it open to shall appoint a person from outside the membership, so that if you wanted to appoint someone else, like on my committee, the assistant to the superintendent is actually the secretary of this, is actually the records keeper, the clerk for our committee. So this leaves it open to appoint a person outside of the membership, and it doesn't lock you into appointing the superintendent.
That makes sense to me.
Well, because I think he's the secretary, but the person who's actually recording the minutes, I mean, that's how I thought of it as being different. Recording the information, the superintendent oversees that, but doesn't actually take the minutes of the meetings and things like that. Am I misunderstanding that policy or?
Well, it
So-
says also call the roll.
Yeah, it's a practice of your committee. So whatever your committee's practice is, that's what you would go with.
Okay. I'm
We do
fine
have-
with keeping it.
Okay. Moving along, the school committee superintendent relationship. This is BDD. The changes we have here are mostly grammatical, but we've changed, the significant one is in that number 1. We've reworded it, will have the privilege of asking, for guidance from the committee with respect, they may seek. Will have the privilege feels a little heavy-handed. So we've just changed it to the superintendent will seek, may seek guidance from the committee. Are there
I'm
any
fine with
questions on
that.
this one? No, we're good.
Nope.
All right. So the next one is BDE. This is subcommittees of the school committee. Again, most of it's grammatical, and the MASC version does not include the language regarding standing subcommittees. Let me take a look at that really quick. Oh, sorry, we don't have the language involving standing subcommittees. Where is that? So yes, the first sentence is unique to you, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can keep it. The other major change would be we do not have number 6. That's kind of, it's a Robert's Rules of Order, but if you want to keep it, you can keep it. If it feels better to keep it in the policy itself, just so that it's there and understood by everyone, it's fine to keep it.
I think we can keep it because I think about right now we're building a new high school, right? So that's an example that a change, we might dissolve a subcommittee about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless anybody else has another thought, I would just keep it.
So I would also say that language, that first paragraph about the committee not having any standing committees, that is not in our model policy. Most districts do have standing committees. You have this one, you have the negotiations committee, and you're not necessarily voting to reform and recharge them every year. So if there are standing committees, you can take that language out. Otherwise, when you reassign people every year, you should be reforming each of those committees.
Mm-hmm. So your recommendation is to just delete that paragraph?
I would, yes, because I think you guys have enough standing committees that it makes sense to.
Any thoughts or concerns with the subcommittee on that? Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
In the next paragraph would start with the.
Yes, it would immediately start with thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So next up is BDF, which is advisory committees to the school committee. These are advisory committees. They are not subcommittees. These are the things like we're going to study start times and things like that. So this is Lowell with MASC updates. We add that number 9 there, that advisory committees created under this policy are subject to OML. And then we update your cross references, and that's the only updates we would do for you.
Good.
This is BDF. Okay. School councils, BDFA. So the MASC version of this was updated in 2002, and it's a lot more prescriptive as to what school councils should be doing and how they're formed. So we would recommend that the committee take our version of this. Let me scroll back up just so you can see yours is a lot shorter. Oh, and it doesn't have the date on it.
Well, I thought it said updated in 22.
Ours is updated in 22. Yours was not.
Oh, okay.
Because ours includes all of these other MGLs.
References, right?
Yep. The general gist of the two policies is sort of the same. The body is a little thicker, but the numbered points are actually very close to being similar. School councils should always do the adoption of the goals for the schools. They should be part of the improvement plan process. They should be part of the budget process. They don't have a vote necessarily outside of their committee. They can recommend, they can give feedback on, and then the principal brings it. So most of it's the same, but I would recommend the MASC version.
That sounds good.
I have a comment.
Yes.
It says the school council shall meet at least once monthly during the school year.
Yes.
I don't believe that all of the schools meet monthly. And later on, you say the school council shall meet regularly with the principal of the school.
Okay.
But if you want them to meet monthly, we can say they meet monthly, but I think some meet bi-monthly, some meet quarterly.
Okay.
How does that, do you know how that fits with the law? Because I thought that
That was-
every school is required to have a school site council.
Yes, they are, but I don't actually know. I can check the MGL on that one. Let me highlight that and I'll make a note. If the MGL does not say meet monthly, do you want me to change it to regularly?
Yeah, I would be fine with that.
Okay.
And it
I
also
will check
says-
the MGL.
It says the superintendent shall receive agendas and minutes of all school council meetings.
Yes.
We've been directing them to post it on the website.
Yeah, that would be receiving.
Okay.
That would be access.
Okay.
Okay, so I will look up that MGL. Let me just scroll up really quick. BDFA. Okay. So next up is school improvement plans. The MASC model policy actually condensed the school improvement plan policy. So we would recommend that you take this one right here, BDFA-E, and rescind all of your -1, -2, -3s because ours is more consolidated and drills down on what the actual school improvement plans should include.
Okay.
Are there any questions about that? Oh, there's also a little grammatical update there, child to student. Are there any questions about yours before we go too far?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. That was just consolidated and updated by our staff a couple years ago. So, BDG, which is the school attorney, I would recommend the MASC policy with Lowell specific additions. So because your city, according to your charter, your city solicitor is required to provide certain legal services. That's great, but the school committee also is by law supposed to have their own legal counsel. So what I've done is I've moved that first paragraph over, but then I've left the rest of our model policy because it is law in the state of Massachusetts that the school committee must retain their own legal counsel, and that legal counsel works specifically for the school committee, not anybody else.
So in our case, would that be Jim Hall?
I guess so.
Right? Because we have like the special ed lawyers, but therefore special education school committee, like special education meetings, right?
You can
And
have
you
more
can't-
than. Oh, I'm sorry, Eileen.
Oh, no, I guess my question was, you can't really count them as a school committee, like lawyer, if they're working just for special education, because they're under the special education budget, I believe.
So districts can definitely have more than one, but it's required that you have at least one that is directly responsible to the school committee so that you can lean on them for legal advice.
Right. So in our case,
yeah.
to identify it, our school attorney would be Jim Hall for employment practices and to ask questions to, and so forth.
Yep.
Okay.
It sounds like it would be for any matter. And I think Jim has been counsel for maybe
Labor.
bargaining?
Labor
Yeah, for labor.
negotiations,
Uh-huh.
HR.
Yeah.
They usually are. The school attorney usually wears a whole bunch of hats when it comes to school committee and negotiations and contracts and things like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So moving along, school committee meetings. This is yours with some reference updates. So the reference updates are we've updated the MGL and we've done some cross references here because we're going to talk about executive sessions and notifications after this policy. But this is your basic policy just with some reference updates from us.
Okay.
And then the next one is regular school committee meetings. So this is Lowell only, and it may be redundant because it does echo the policy above, talks about school committee meetings and then executive sessions. This has very Lowell specific language in it though, and if you want to retain that, that's okay, but we should make sure that it is absolutely the most up-to-date information. Not every district will have a policy that specifically talks about when and where your meetings are held. That tends to be kind of unique to the cities. So if you want to keep it, we just need to make sure everything's correct.
Well, right away you can see that we don't start at 7. We start at 6:30 if you're talking about our regular meetings. That's changed in terms of practice.
So do you think it's valuable to continue to have this as in your policy manual, or do you think it's more likely that it would give you more flexibility? Because the meetings have to be posted. It's not like people can't find out. People don't usually go to your policy manual to find out when and where your meetings are.
So what do other people do? What does MASC recommend? That you don't need this level of detail?
Correct, because you're going to post the meetings anyway.
Mr. Conway has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. We get correspondence from, let's say, the superintendent's office. Is that legal to have all the school committee on a text message? And sometimes people will go back and forth.
So I would say that's an open meeting law question, and that would be a question of what are you talking about? If you're trying to arrange a meeting and say, well, I'm available then, I'm not available then, the superintendent is outside of OML, you guys are inside of OML. So if you guys started deliberating, that would be a problem. But if the superintendent is asking a housekeeping question, like, can everyone meet on Monday at 6 o'clock because we just got a contract through and it's going to be ratified by the union, we want to make sure we pass it. That can go through communicate. I would say keep that in email, but that can definitely be a group discussion about who's available when so that you can get quorum. As long as it's not a deliberation, it doesn't cross the line.
You're okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's funny. I just got one of those email threads from my superintendent because we just got a contract. We're hoping to have a contract back to ratify next week. So
Good.
'Tis the season. Everyone's trying to get to July 1st.
All right. So what do you want to do about the meeting schedule? Do you want to keep it in? I'm asking my co-workers here on the subcommittee. MASC is saying you don't need this level of detail and we don't need it, but
You want to keep that BEA-E.
I would just think the language is to refer to the meeting posting 48 hours ahead of time.
BEA-E.
So this is only BEA. It's not -E yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
you want to delete it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get it. That makes more sense.
Not the -E. We don't want to delete the -E. We're saying the BEA doesn't necessarily need to be in your policy manual because it talks about specific
Delete
times
the
and
BEA
locations.
and keep the BEA.
Okay. I agree.
So you're striking the BEA?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one, excuse me, this is BEA-E. Again, this is, yes, I'm recommending striking it because this is actually just a restating of the open meeting law. And because remote access has changed and then changed again and changed again, I would recommend removing this, and we can just, as we go, make sure you're referencing the open meeting law.
Okay,
Because this really is a restatement.
Makes sense as long as the Lowell School Committee is in correlation with the open meeting law of Massachusetts.
Mhm.
Something to that effect.
Yep. So this is BEB, and this is special school committee meetings. I'm going to scroll back up for a minute and show you that the version of BE you have is already in here. Special meetings, regular meetings, and special meetings are here. Executive session gets its own policy. So we don't, you don't necessarily need this BEB, special school committee meetings. I would say it's better to remove it
okay,
just because it's redundant.
right.
And then BEC is the one that deals with executive sessions, and yours is outdated. I would recommend the MASC version here. Ours, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Ours includes the 10 reasons. So they are in the policy itself. So that's part of the reason we would recommend our version of BEC.
Right. It's much more specific to the law about why you can have executive session, lists all of them.
Yes,
And it's
one of those
updated.
rare times because we're usually telling you don't restate the law. And for this one, we're like, restate the law.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So BED school committee meeting procedures. This is one I would flag for discussion because this is clearly very procedural. It talks about the committee meetings being held twice a month on Wednesdays. It does mention the 48 hours, but then it also goes into a lot about like your specifics about quorum, and it restates a bunch of things that are actually in Robert's rules. So I would say if you'd like to keep it, you can. Most committees don't have this in their policy manual. What they do is one of their policies will say our rules of order are Robert's rules. And then if there are other procedural things, they put them in their operating protocols. So it's up to you guys if you want to keep it. There is, like I said, a lot of things in here that are very Lowell specific. So it's going to have to be up to the committee. And it may even be a full committee discussion.
Right. I think it would be, but you can see in here, it even needs to be updated. It says the meetings are to begin at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and they begin at 6:30.
Okay.
Oh,
right,
what
so-
does this say? 6 p.m.
Well, it says that
Oh, that's about the notice, right? That's different. Later on, like the third paragraph at the end, it says that we start at 7. We used to start at 7. I don't know.
yeah.
It changed, but we never changed the policy. So there was nothing in here that you had an issue with. It's just you feel like we don't necessarily need it because you could just say we follow Robert's rules.
Correct.
But there's nothing that's jumping out at you as being problematic.
No, there's nothing in here that I would say is, oh my God, this is illegal. I would
Right.
say that paragraph right at the beginning where it says that the meeting minutes, etc., will be in your hands by 6 p.m. Monday, the evening previous to the meeting. That's a little, I think once you post the agenda, the packet should be available. That's a best practice. Once the agenda is posted, everyone should have access to the documents. So I would say that's a little weird that that's in there, but it's not illegal because it's the packet, not the agenda. That would be
And that's
dictated.
not even being followed. We typically get the packets on Friday night.
Yeah.
So
Here's what I would say. Discuss it with the full committee. I think it's
Okay.
probably a good idea once you're done with your entire policy manual, go back and take a look at your operating procedures. That's something that we can come out and do with you too, where we can take a look at things like this, your operating procedures. We can look at operating procedures in other districts, what your rules are now, and sort of reform that. But I would say discuss this with the full committee, and then we'll see what they say.
So can we, to my team there, Miss Phillips or Miss Sheehan, can we update this with what we know is already incorrect? Highlight or whatever. So when it goes before the full committee, we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
Also make a note that we might not need it in policy if it's covered well enough under operations.
Well, I think you might still want to vote it on, Jackie, in terms of each superintendent knowing the procedure. Because it's actually the first and third Wednesdays of the month now.
It's not the second and fourth.
And I believe that you guys have to have your motions in by 10 on that Friday with the expectation that you'll be getting the agendas and packet on Fridays
Right. So that's what I
mid-afternoon.
mean by, that's what I mean by updating it, Mary, to what we've been doing. And then we'll talk about it with the full committee. And I mean, I don't have an issue with making changes to what we've been doing. My issue is, do we want it in the policy handbook or do we want it under operations? I mean, clearly we've made a lot of changes to our operating procedures that weren't in the policy book. And maybe that's just another indication it doesn't need to be. I don't know. I'm not
This
making that
also
decision.
could possibly be voted on inauguration day when we get our school committee rules.
That's
We
so
often
school
get
committee-
that. This could be included in that vote of the committee on that specific day.
And that is usually what happens is when you seat your new committee, that's when your rules and your operating protocols, and some districts call them different things. Most districts will do operating protocols over rules. The cities like to do rules and operating protocols. And definitely when you inaugurate your new committee, that is the time to vote on it.
Right.
Yeah,
All right,
we call them rules.
All right. So good to know. We call them rules.
Okay.
And do we, and so Alicia, are you saying it's totally up to us? There's nothing problematic about this, but you're also recommending this doesn't need to be in the policy. It could just be in the rules.
Yes, that's what I would agree.
Okay.
That's
So
what I would-
that's something I want to, when we meet with the full committee, just get their thoughts on it and make a decision either way. But we do need to update this because it's not accurate to what we've been doing. Even I didn't even catch that. It's not the second and fourth, it's the first and third. And it has been for a while, like years and years and years. So,
And one thing I noticed was that the Lowell rules are more strict than the legal deadlines, right? So like
Yep.
posting on Friday, but
Mhm.
legally it doesn't have to be posted until Monday, you know?
Yep, you can make it a tighter recommendation, but you can't make it a looser recommendation. So
right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So we've got that one held and flagged for updating, etc. BEDA, this is the notification of school committee meetings. I would recommend you remove this. You have to notify within 48 hours by OML, and OML is referenced throughout this entire section. So I would say you can take this out. It's redundant.
Okay.
Okay. Next up is oh, sorry, not redundant, outdated. I'm sorry about that. This is the one we would recommend.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
sorry, it wasn't redundant. It was outdated. I should have kept scrolling. The heat's getting to me. So this is actually yours describing the 48-hour window. Doesn't say anything about Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, and that is part of the open meeting law. I knew this policy was in here. I just had forgotten it was next. So this actually talks about the actual posting, notification of dates, times, and places. It talks a little bit about what should be on the agenda, things that will be reasonably anticipated being discussed. So this is the version we would recommend.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to change the word town to city, though. Okay. So the next one up is BEDB. This is agenda preparation and dissemination. So we have a model policy on this. It's very high level though. And there isn't an MGL that goes with it, just so that you're aware. Agenda preparation is one of those things where we call it agenda format. You get a little bit more into how the agenda is going to be prepared. When we talk about how things get on the agenda to our committees, we usually talk about their operating protocols and their rules. So if you wanted to keep this, I would say this specific language about the order of business, unless in a majority vote, et cetera, this could be moved to rules as well. And then if you did that, I would recommend our agenda format policy because it talks about a lot of those things, but it also talks about people, school committee staff member or citizen may suggest items of business. The inclusion is at the discretion of the chair of the committee. There's places in here where you could put a little bit more Lowell specific detail about how things go down the agenda and when they get distributed. Like this one says no less than 3 business days. So the upshot
Alicia,
is, yes.
when they vote on inauguration day,
Yep.
as I'm reading this, they also vote on the actual format of the agenda. So how things appear in what
Okay.
order,
Okay, so I would say you don't need ours or your version of this then.
right?
So
It's in the rules.
It's in the rules and they vote on the actual format of how the agenda will appear.
okay, fantastic. So you don't need either one. That's actually great.
Okay. But we do want to, at some point, look at the rules and make sure that,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, let me just do this really quick. I like that you guys vote on that every year.
Every 2
committee.
years.
Every 2 years. That's great because it makes people, it makes it
And
clear
here it
to
is.
everyone. We're all starting on the same foot.
Yeah.
All right, so I would say this next one too, I would have recommended removing it anyway because your agenda format can change, but we're going to remove it to rules.
Got
And
it.
we'll do that. Okay. Next is quorum. This is also redundant and I would recommend removal. Especially since the size of your committee may change over the years and then you'd have to come back and change it here.
Okay.
Next up is rules of order. I'm flagging this one for discussion because what I'm showing you on the screen right now is our model policy, which is literally rules of order, Robert's rules of order, except when those rules are in conflict with the committee's approved policies and regulations. And then it also says you can suspend it by 2/3. Your version of this gets into quorum and it says motions must be seconded, which yes, all motions must be seconded. It says that each member shall be allowed to speak twice on that motion. That's actually straight out of Robert's rules. So it's up to you if you want to keep your version, but I would say our version that says we follow Robert's rules is a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
So do people have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, my first thought is that it is shorter to just say we refer to Robert's rules, but to specifically talk about things, for someone that maybe is not as comfortable with Robert's rules. I do like that part of it, but you'll see that there was a typo here on number 3. When a motion is made, each member shall be allowed to sneak twice on that motion.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know that you're exposed to it if it's in the policy anyway.
Yeah,
it's not like when you get on the school committee, you read the 900-page policies.
Right.
But is it in the rules, Mary, when you get on the rules that we approve in the first meeting?
This is not, no, I don't believe it is. But I think this is important to have, especially, I know many committee members over the years have often asked questions about reconsideration. So I think having that spelled out will be an asset for the committee members.
Agreed.
Right. Again, because it's like knowing an encyclopedia,
Yes.
But
I mean,
again,
I wonder if it shouldn't be part
to
of the rules.
Jackie's side, this may be better served the day of the inauguration too, to be included with the rules.
That's what I'm thinking. I wanted it. You're not going to see the policy book. You know what I mean? Nobody reads 900-page policy book.
So
But the rules of order.
maybe what you could do is you could go to the MASC version is recommended, but then still include this with the rules. So you've got it covered on both sides.
Yeah, I would like to do that. So let's ask for that and see what the
Okay.
committee thinks. Because I do think that it's just some basic stuff, good to know when you're first starting out.
Okay. So I'm
And that
flagging
was-
for potential
what
inclusion
was
in the
that?
rules. This is BEDD. And my note is that we're flagging it for potential inclusion in the rules and adopting the MASC version for the policy manual.
Which means it's coming out of the policy manual. Your version just refers to Robert's rules.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Good stuff. Excuse me. BEDF. This is voting method. So I would say this was codified in 1978, and our model policy on this was codified in revised in 2002. Sorry, through 2022, and includes votes taken in executive session. It does not talk about votes in remote session, but that doesn't necessarily need to be in the policy because the law that extended remote meetings includes that they must all be by roll call vote. And I would say you don't necessarily need to include that until that becomes a permanent law.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's just an extension. So our version of this is 2022 and includes how you vote in executive session. So I would recommend our version of this.
Good. Sounds good.
Okay, so minutes. This is another one I've flagged for discussion. BEDG. So our statement on minutes, they are similar. I would say as long as, and I think you do, as long as you feel like yours covers all of the things that are in our model policy, which I think you do, you could keep yours if you felt like it. It's up to you. I would say that
difference.
Sorry. So most of the difference is copies of minutes being sent 48 hours. Yours does not. Oh, yes, it does. Yours says 48 hours. Yours talks about the minutes being signed by the secretary. We don't have that. They're just approved by the committee. Yours talks about corrections being presented at a subsequent meeting. You can correct minutes within the meeting itself. You don't have to do that at a subsequent meeting. You could say like so-and-so's name was left off of it. Ours does not include subcommittee reports as part of your minutes. But like my personal committee, we do subcommittee reports in our agenda, so it would be included in the minutes anyway. So I would say those are the only real differences.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to you which version you prefer.
Any thoughts from my colleagues on the subcommittee? I don't know that it needs to be discussed with the whole committee. Unless you feel it's that important. I think we could just stay with what we have or switch to yours. And you don't seem to have strong feelings either way.
No, there's nothing in your policy that I would say, oh my God, that violates MGL. You just go a little bit further into the details, the procedural part of it than our policy does. But if that is currently your practice and it works for you, you can keep yours.
Yeah, I don't think we're signing them. Are we signing our minutes?
I present them to the committee. I present them to the superintendent, and he is whether he actually signs them his name is on the minutes, that he's submitting them to the committee.
Okay,
Okay, so
But I
can
will
you-
say the only difference is, it has been my understanding and my belief that the secretary to the school committee, which is the superintendent, is in charge as the home of the minutes, not this recording secretary. And this states differently.
yeah, you have a recording secretary line here at the end here.
I retain them at the minutes, but in terms of who houses them and who's in charge of them, it's always been the secretary to the school committee, which is the superintendent.
And Mary, doesn't it have to get approved by the superintendent as well?
I hand them into the superintendent for the committee, and they go to him before they're presented to you.
So the superintendent doesn't approve the minutes? Only you can
Yes,
approve.
I turn them into him. He is the one that presents them to the committee, and if you look at my minutes, his name is always the person that's signing. I'm just on the
Okay.
bottom, my initials. But he doesn't physically sign them, but his name does appear as the person submitting the minutes.
So here's what I will say. I think maybe we replace that last paragraph with the one I just brought over from our policy manual.
mm-hmm,
So that it says the approved minutes will become permanent records of the committee. Minutes of public meetings and minutes of executive sessions that have been declassified will be in the custody of the superintendent, who will make them available to interested citizens upon request.
It has
Okay.
always been the
Oh wait, we already
It's
had
always been
that.
the
Oh my
practice
goodness.
here that anybody who's looking for anything, like, in other words, the recording secretary or anyone wouldn't necessarily have the right to start handing things out, even though
Right.
it's public record. It needs to still be filtered through the superintendent's office.
right.
So that's why they are the keeper of those records.
Okay, so we'll just
And
remove your paragraph at the end there.
And why not replace it with the one you had? That's what it
Because I
said.
just realized Eileen said, I think that it's actually already in there. I scrolled back up and found it. It is.
Oh, the approved
Well,
minutes of the paragraph above it. Got it. Got it. Okay, good catch.
I was thrown. Thank you, Eileen. This is why policy work is a group effort.
That's right. All right,
You're
that
welcome.
sounds
I'm
good.
glad.
All right, so are we all set with this one? We're going to keep yours with the edit.
Yeah, so you can change flagging for discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. So, and I will strike this one because we don't need our version of this. Let's try that again. Next up, public participation. There was a court ruling that happened in 2023 that changed how we do public comment. We would recommend our version of this. Yours is very, very, very similar. However, it was updated in 1997. Ours goes a little bit more into, again, procedurally, which we don't usually do, but it talks about how you will announce and sign in. These numbers, public comment section not to exceed, that is up to the committee. Being allowed 3 minutes, that is up to the committee. I can tell you my committee does 20 minutes allotted with 3 minutes for everyone. And then written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented in writing.
Wow, so we've never done that limit that you can't talk for more than 15 minutes. If you had, 20 speakers, they each get 3 minutes.
Mhm.
So we've never done the public comment shall not exceed 15 minutes. Kind of let everybody speak.
Which is probably why a lot of our meetings go over a lot of the time. But I think that's a good idea, because so when all the registered speakers are there, like, piled up, like, all right, now I'm sorry, you have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes if it's 10 speakers, right? But if there's less, you have the total of 20 minutes. It kind of gives justice.
It doesn't work that. I don't think that's what that policy says. It
So
says
it
you have,
doesn't, yeah.
it
But
says you
that
have,
would be up to you.
right.
That
You
would be
have
up to you. The biggest update from this to this policy from your original policy is this right here, number 4. because we had the court ruling that came down in 2023 that essentially said that public comment could be pretty much anything from the point of view of the public, limited by provoking violent reaction, a breach of peace, or an incitement to lawless conduct. So there were some school committees that were shutting down public comment when they got really heated. However, the court ruling said you can't do that. You can only shut it down if it's actually a threat. You can remind people if they're violating someone else's privacy, that they're violating someone else's privacy. You can stop them and say you're doing that. You can remind them that they're violating their own child's right to privacy, but that's their child. They can do it themselves. The other, excuse me, the other thing of note here is this part. Oh, I'm so sorry. The part that talks about public comment not being a discussion.
Right.
Hold on one second.
Right.
How are you feeling about they shall not exceed language?
I think we shouldn't have that. I think anybody who comes to a meeting and wants to speak to us should have their 3 minutes to tell us what's on their mind. I don't want to say, oh, the first 10 speakers took up 30 minutes, so now you, number 11, you don't get to speak. And we've never done it in practice. And I think that part is totally up to us to decide. I mean, we did go from 5 minutes to 3 minutes because we would, often be there, as Eileen said, many, late into the night. And I think the city council also allows 3 minutes. So if we stay with the 3 minutes and everyone who's there and registered to speak gets to speak their mind, I'm more comfortable with that. But I don't know how my colleagues feel about it. But that really was what that meant, right? You can have everyone can speak 3 minutes until you get to 15 minutes and then you're done.
So am I hearing you want to eliminate the public comment segment shall not exceed 15 minutes?
Yes. And
Okay.
all of a sudden yours got very, very big. Is that everybody's screen doing that or just mine?
I think a lot of other districts do that, Jackie.
They limit it to 15 minutes.
I don't know about that number, but I know I've heard other districts that do it. I don't know what number they all decide upon.
But we've never done that.
Alicia would answer that better.
It's usually around 20 minutes, but here's the thing, you can say it's going to be limited to 20 minutes. And if you have a crowd that comes in on a night and they're passionate about something, you can always extend it. So it's up to you.
Well, if we didn't have it, if it wasn't our policy before, or if it was a policy, we weren't following it, maybe we should discuss it with the whole committee.
Okay.
I'd be more open to saying public comment can't exceed an hour. It just seems like that's why we're there. We're supposed to listen to the constituents and hear people's concerns. And 3 minutes is not a lot of time. If 20 people come out to give a 3 minute speech, I think we should hear it, but I don't want to. I know in practice we have not set a limit on it.
No, I get that, but at the same time, it would kind of force people to put the most impactful part of it and wrap like what their point up is.
No, Eileen, you still only get 3 minutes. It's just how many people get 3 minutes. If you say we're only going to allow public comment for 20 minutes and everybody gets only 3 minutes, you don't have 7 people can talk and the last person doesn't get 3 minutes.
So something else I would say about having a large number of people come out, and this isn't a policy thing, this is a best practice. If you have a crowd of people come out and they all want to talk about this one subject, that may be a clue to the committee that you might need to have a special meeting about just that, because we try to remind our committees that school committee meetings are business meetings of the school committee in public, and you do still have to get to things like the payroll warrant and approving things. So you do have to make sure the business happens. So you can put a limit or you cannot put a limit. But I would say in practice too, keep in the back of your minds that if you have a night where it explodes and you have 30 people who want to talk, that may be a clear indication that you need to have a special meeting
Okay.
just on that subject.
I think we should discuss it because we did have a situation where two people signed up to speak on about 12 different items. And they took up a good chunk of the meet. Every single item, same two people getting up to speak 3 minutes. And we ran out of time. We got to 10 o'clock. We didn't even get through half the agenda. It was quite upsetting to me. It happened to be the night before my son's out of town wedding that I was leaving the state. And it was like, I'm at this meeting for some very important stuff that we didn't get to. So I think it's worth a conversation. Let's flag it.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Let's flag that one for discussion.
Okay. Just that component. How
Yes.
many speakers?
So next up is BEE. This is special procedures for conducting hearings, because you don't have very many hearings, but there are special. There's a typo here. Seek to publicize the meeting, all local media. That mean in? Hold on one second. No, I guess not. So this is the grammatical updates only on this one. Your policy matched ours.
Okay. That's good.
So no changes there. BG, which is School Committee Policy Development. This is yours with MASC updates. We have removed this reference to the National School Boards Association. Massachusetts is currently a member of the National School Boards Association, but we may or may not be in the future. This is the accepted definition of policy. We don't feel like we need to name them. We've also updated, it's not just the Board of Ed anymore, it's the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. So those are your basic updates right there.
Got it. That
That's
looks good.
PG. And actually, the president of the National School Boards Association right now is from Massachusetts.
That's cool.
One of our MASC past presidents.
Oh,
Devin Sheehan.
wow.
Yes, it's very impressive. So BGB, policy adoption, they are nearly identical. So I would say retaining yours is appropriate.
Okay.
So when we do policy adoption, there are some districts that do a 2-meeting cycle. You do a 3-meeting cycle and information, discussion, and action, which honestly is my preferred way to do it anyway. So
Okay.
BGC, policy revision and review. So the last sentence there is, you do need to retain, you should by best practice, retain one paper copy somewhere, but we're not necessarily asking you to maintain paper copies all over the town, all over the city. It used to be that the paper copies could be found at some of the public libraries and in every building, and that's not what's happening anymore. It's mostly electronic. By best practice, the superintendent's office should always have one paper copy, but you don't necessarily need to recall all the old copies because you shouldn't be printing them out all over the place. They update too fast now. So that's
Okay.
the only change we would make here.
All right.
And it actually should say no longer retain multiple paper copies. Oh, maybe we should spell that correctly.
And especially now that it's online with MASC. Our policy book was never online before. That was something we did in recent years. So people can go online and look at the policies.
So BGD, which is School Committee Review of, and we changed this to procedures, not regulations. That is mostly what is happening here. Everything else matches. We've just changed the word regulations to procedures and system to district. Everything else matches.
Okay.
And the next one, policy dissemination. This is another one that matches, and we've just changed system to district.
Good.
Suspension of policies, BGF. This is yours with an MASC update. The only thing we've added here is we still have the things that can be suspended by 2/3 vote. Any action to suspend policy must be reviewed at the next scheduled meeting and is also noted on the next agenda. So if you were doing something like this, very often happens with, we had a policy where we needed to create a policy for being able to sell back Chromebooks to the company to get a credit. We did not have that policy. We were trying to get it in under the wire. This was just pre-COVID when everything was happening. So we suspended the adoption of policies policy. That's the sort of thing that would require the suspension of policies. And then you bring it back up on the next agenda to say that, yes or no, the policy is still suspended or we are reinstating it and here's what happened. So that would be the only update here.
Okay.
That's a best practice too. BHC, school committee visits and communication. The policies are very similar. There are minor differences such as these highlighted sections. We have a much shorter version of visits to schools than you do. So I would say that you might want to discuss whether or not you want to keep that very Lowell specific language here in the highlight. If you do also, we want to make sure that you add this official visits by committee members are carried out only under committee authorization. The idea is we don't want people just popping into the elementary school and conducting an inspection.
Right.
That's not your purview. So yeah, that same process applies to meeting with department heads. The school committee members don't usually meet with department heads outside of the superintendent anyway.
Mm-hmm. So I think these changes were done fairly recently.
It looks like 2018.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did we approve this as, or review this as one of the standalone policies that went out of order?
Out of section G, yes,
I believe we did.
correct. Okay.
that's why it feels so familiar to me.
Yeah.
Clearly not from 2018. I'm
Right.
like, whoa.
Okay, so let me
So
pull the one from whatever you approved in section G. This is supposed to mirror that policy, so I
Okay.
will pull that one out of your section G and put it in here.
Yeah, because I think we already dealt with this. Excellent point,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips. Thank you. I'm like, I think we just did this in 2018.
Like policy deja vu.
Okay.
We usually do it the other way with most committees. By the time we get to G, they're like, wait a minute, I've seen this in B. You guys just did it the other way. Okay, so I will come back and pull that one.
Okay.
BHE, use of electronic messaging by school committee members. We would recommend adoption of this. There have been a bunch of committees that have run afoul of the, every day they're inventing exciting new ways to violate open meeting law via your phone.
Right.
So we would recommend this. It mostly says that you need to be careful about quorum. You should be using only your school district issued email addresses for school committee business, etc. So any
Okay.
questions on this one?
Nope.
Okay. BIA, the policies are similar. And if this is your current practice and you feel like it's the best practice, yours is appropriate to retain. I would say, I'm scanning here for a quick. If you retain your version, I would say we need to bring up the legal reference to both the ethics training and the oath of office, qualifications and oath of office. So which version you would like is up to you. And then I would say we might want to, sorry about that, I'm talking and typing at the same time. We would want to bring over those references.
Yeah, I think if ours is fine, we can stay with ours and add the references to make it more comprehensive.
Okay. All right, excellent. Oh, okay. So that was BIA. And moving along to the next one, BIBA. This is school committee conferences, conventions, and workshops. Again, they are definitely similar, but yours has district specific information. Which is that your wording says a calendar of school committee conferences, conventions, and workshops will be, this is probably supposed to be maintained, not mainlined, by the committee secretary. That is not necessarily in our model policy. If that's how you do it, that's fine.
I don't, do we do that? I don't think we do that.
I think I don't think any one of us really utilize that even line item, but I'd like to know if I want to go to a conference out in California or Vegas that I can.
I'll be
I think-
honest, most of the conferences for you guys would be things like sunny Cape Cod.
Right, in November.
We're
But
coming off
it's
the
well
Cape.
worth it. It's a lot of good information.
This is the
Right.
last year on the Cape.
Oh, really?
Coming off the Cape. We're coming back to mainland Massachusetts. I can't
Yeah.
say exactly where yet because it hasn't been confirmed, but we're coming off the Cape. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's a long drive. All right.
So I would say yours is,
Margaritaville? Okay.
so this is our version of it, and I struck it because your version is okay. It depends on which one you want. I think ours is just slightly more succinct and doesn't talk about the secretary maintaining it. It just says that you'll be made aware of school committee conferences and workshops.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they're pretty similar. So the version is up to you.
I think we should just stay with ours.
Okay. Sounds good. Do you want me to remove that line about the calendar of being maintained?
Yeah. I mean, we would get notified, and I don't even know if it's been happening because we've had so many changes with the superintendent's executive secretary. Because I remember in former years, we would get a notice, the MASC orientation is coming up, or they do, this is the early bird special. You can, sign up now and save some money. I think we got out of doing that because there's not the historical knowledge that was there. We've had changes in the superintendent's executive secretary for a couple of years now. And I don't know if it needs to come back in or not, but.
So I just pulled the sentence from our number one that says the school committee will be made aware of
Okay.
having the secretary be in charge of it.
Right. All
And I
right.
can tell you on my committee, as part of the vice chair's report, they give an MASC update. And that's where we usually find out about conventions.
I can't move right there. Well, I think that would be almost a good idea for us too, and to make it easier to access. Like how would we even access that, right? Or those benefits or whatever.
Right. So
Absolutely.
we can ask for that when we talk about it, to reinstate some sort of notification system for us about these conferences and conventions.
So the next one here is BID, school committee member compensation and expenses. I can tell you our model policy says shall serve without compensation because that's what like 95% of the school committees do. If this is the stipend you get, let's make sure we actually have the correct number in there.
No, it's 12,000 a year
Oh.
now.
That makes lots of districts jealous because most of us don't get paid.
Yeah, but some get paid a lot more. Look at Cambridge.
That is true. Okay, so I would say though, we can change that number there, but how is that stipend determined? Is it determined by the city council yearly?
Yes.
Not yearly, but yes. The council voted to give themselves a raise and they gave us a raise many years ago. I don't think they vote on it every year though. I think it's just is what it is.
So here's what I would recommend. Instead of putting the amount in, let's put as voted by the city council per annum.
Okay.
That way, whatever the city council votes, you don't have to keep coming back and updating your policy.
And
Okay.
it's not council, it's council CIL.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Does
Thank you.
per annum mean each year?
Yes, that means you're getting paid each year, but I'm going to move that stipend, this service,
Take the 3,000 out.
and do that. So you shall receive a stipend per annum for their services as voted by the city council. So I've reworded the sentence there.
Right. And I don't know what the next sentence is saying because it's too big. I can't read the whole sentence on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Did it change for other people? I don't know why it got, wow.
Oh,
All right, there we go. Perfect.
okay. Yeah, that's just a reiteration of the reimbursement. If you travel on behalf of the district, you can be reimbursed the
Okay. Yep.
IRS reimbursement. Excuse me. We would also add to your version that last paragraph that you may not accept inherently. Oh God, I lost the word. You may not accept employment within the district that is at odds with your position. So,
Right. Okay.
alrighty. And then that's ours. School committee legislative program, they match, no action required.
Good.
Love when that happens. School committee memberships, BK. This is Lowell only. We pulled this out of our model policy manual a couple of years ago. You're not required to be members of MASC. There are some states that do require their school committees to be members. You're not required to. This is a policy that says you will participate and be an active member. It's entirely up to the district if you want to retain this policy, but you are not required by law to be members of the MASC.
Well, I think we have in practice always recognized that it's a benefit for us to be part of MASC. I don't know. I guess you're saying we could just take it out,
You could, if the committee wanted
not
to.
reference it at all.
Yep.
But I do feel like it's definitely a line item that enrolls us all as school committee members with MASC. And I believe it's either $5,000 or $10,000 because I was confused about that, and they explained that during the budget hearings.
Mhm. Entirely up to you. And I don't know what the membership calculation is, the membership dues calculation is, but it's based on your per capita per student spending.
See, it's the other one we're not doing. Also maintain appropriate memberships in other educational organizations. I don't know of other educational organizations that we're members of.
Right. Do you want me to
So,
change that to may instead of will?
yeah, I guess that would be good.
Uh-oh.
All right.
All right. Is that the end of this
That's
section?
the end. That is the end of section B.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
now we're looking for a motion that we accept the suggested changes. And we're going to be
Motion to accept the suggested changes.
And send them to the full committee for a vote.
yes, and then with discussion on those identified areas.
So how do you want the motion to read again? To accept?
You want to tell them?
Sure. So it sounded like it was accept section B with the accepted changes.
Amen.
And policies identified for discussion.
Okay, buddy.
To send to the full committee for a first read.
So we had that motion by Ms. Del Rossi. Do I have a second? Mr. Conway?
No, Mr. Conway's gone.
I think he had to leave.
Oh, okay, I'll second it.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Chairperson Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Conway, Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
2 yeas.
Motion to adjourn? Or is there
Wait,
anything
can I
else?
ask a question really
Yeah.
quickly? Couple of questions. First, when is your next full school committee meeting?
July? Oh, well,
July
we have a special
16th.
meeting June 30th, but
July
I don't think we're
16th.
gonna, July
No,
15th.
I won't have these minutes done by July 30th. I have 3 sets before this one.
Okay. June 30th is a special meeting anyway. I don't think we're gonna be including this,
Okay.
right? It's
So
just on
July
budget
16th
stuff.
would be the next one?
Yeah.
That you could potentially do this one? Okay. I just want to make sure I have it to you in time because I'm on a business trip later this week.
Okay.
So, and then when do you guys want the subcommittee to meet again?
I
Yeah,
would say
we-
they'll have to pull Alicia.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we need Dave. I need to know what Dave's schedule is too before we could.
Yeah, I know
you-
he has some dates that we're gonna have to play with in July, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you
So
wanting
June-
to move forward in July, or do you want to wait until August?
Well,
Well,
I know Dave mentioned he has some things that may question his availability.
Right. So once we get if you can email your availability to us, Alicia, what your summer's looking like. If we can fit it in July, it'd be great to try to get back on once a month.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
so okay. So
All right,
we'll
I will
start
email
with what you've got available, and then we'll poll with the other committee members.
Okay. Sounds
Subcommittee
good.
members. All right. Thank you all. Stay cool in this heat.
Now you have to motion to
So-
adjourn.
You need to adjourn,
Motion
Jackie.
to adjourn by,
To adjourn.
by Mr. Rossi. I second it. Roll call.
Chairperson Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Conway, Mr. Rossi,
Yes.
motion adjourned.
All right.
Bye, all.
Goodbye,
Stay
guys.
cool.